Good afternoon, everybody, both here in person and also online. This is a hybrid event. And welcome to this CCPL seminar on human rights from the bottom up in Uzbekistan with Dilfuza Kurolova, who is currently a 2023 Asia Global Fellow with the AsiaGlobal Institute at Hong Kong U. And this is the third in something like an informal series of seminars on human rights that are presented by AsiaGlobal Fellows this semester. And we've been very lucky to have such a prominent group of experts here on the ground in-house to share their experiences and their knowledge with us. And I do hope you had the opportunity to attend the two previous discussions that we've had. Dilfuza is a human rights lawyer and a professional mediator. And while she's here at Hong Kong U, she's doing research on civic engagement tools in Central Asia and beyond for promoting human rights. Back in Uzbekistan, she works as a consultant for the World Bank and the International Commission of Jurists. And she's also been very involved in law reform on domestic violence in her country. There's a lot more that I could say about the very important work that Dilfuza has been doing. But in the interest of time, I would like to hand the floor over now to Dilfuza to present. And I just want to say that if you are online, please do type your questions into the Q&A, not the chat box. I don't think there's even a chat box. Or, well, it's okay. So type your questions into the Q&A, and hopefully we'll have plenty of time for discussion at the end.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm really, really happy to be here. Thanks a lot for inviting. So I will be very quick because I really want to get more interaction with you and chat and know your opinion, because human rights is all about our rights, about our life, what we do, how we live in, etc. So before I start my presentation about human rights in Uzbekistan, I have a few questions to ask from the audience. You may not raise your hand. You may maybe not even think about that, but please don't raise your hand if you feel uncomfortable answering this question. But yeah, the first question, it's really personal, but I also feel that everyone maybe faced it. But have you ever in your life be a victim of domestic violence? Or have you ever seen sexual harassment, experienced, or be a victim of gender-based discrimination in your life? If yes, if you want to share, you're welcome. If not, don't raise your hand. But I will. Have you ever witnessed domestic violence in your life? Maybe you saw your neighbors, your friends, your family members? If yes, you can share with us. If not, if you don't feel comfortable, you also don't raise your hand, but I will. When you saw the witness, when you saw the domestic violence, did you take any actions? Did you do something? Have you ever thought doing something? For me, the answer will be yes. And did you see any violence against women online? Maybe in comments, maybe on movies, maybe on social media? Did you take any actions to support the victim or participate in any kind of discussions? I think these are some questions that we never think about that, or we think, but we're afraid to talk about, or we don't even don't feel comfortable to speak with our friends, with our professors, with our teachers, with our neighbors, with our friends. So today we will be talking about that, because this is what really makes me mad back in country when I witness and we take no action toward that. So in a very nice mode, let's move to the presentation and let's see where the Uzbekistan is. maybe most of you Googled where Uzbekistan after showing the poster. So we are in the middle of Central Asia. We are not very much Asian country, but at the same time, we share a common path with the Great Silk Road. So Uzbekistan is basically in the middle of all Central Asian countries, Stan countries as we call. So you see we are border with Kazakhstan, Turkmenistan, Afghanistan, Tajikistan, and Kyrgyzstan. And I think this is our most of the biggest comparative advantage of being in the center of Central Asia. But also interesting fact that we are the second and there are only two countries, double landlocked countries, right? One is Uzbekistan, another one is Liechtenstein. So we are bordered with countries which also do not have access to water. So we are in very, very Khazaria's place. We don't have access to water at all. We have RLC. You see that there. Unfortunately, it's really dying. It's also one of the catastrophe that we have in Uzbekistan. But we are all share the common history, which is the Soviet Union. We were part of Soviet Union for many, many decades. And we have the same law, the same legal system, the same maybe history, and even some patterns that we witness now, even the same. So we all speak Russian language. So Russian is our second language, as I say. So we do not really consider Russian as a foreign language, I would say, because most of the people of Central Asian countries, they do speak in two languages, their own language and Russian. So we are bilingual in our region. So if we look to Uzbekistan, why I'm talking about Uzbekistan, because I want to give you a little bit background how we live, so you can understand why GBV issue is so important and so difficult to push and make change in our societies. So basically, Uzbekistan is the largest country in Central Asia by the population. We're almost 36 million. In comparison to other Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan, and Turkmenistan. By the territory, of course, Kazakhstan is much bigger. So like 3 times or 4 times bigger than Uzbekistan. If you look to GDP, in GDP, we are the second after Kazakhstan. 3 times more than us is the Kazakh economy. Poverty rate is almost the same, I would say. But if you look to the women and gender share, so you see that almost 50% of population are women in all countries. Somewhere it's 49, somewhere it's 51. So basically all Central Asian countries have the same gender population. So there is no much difference between our countries. So let's move a little bit to the gender issues in the country. Before going there, I should say that all women go to work. They are not limited to stay at home. But at the same time, you have to understand that we have a 85%, almost 85% of population in Uzbekistan are Muslims. And we have very strong traditional values that also impose to growing masculine society in the country, right? So this is, we are not Islamic country, but at the same time, most of the population are Muslims. So this also gives a little bit of flavor of what conditions we're working and living in the country. So gender issues. 99% of children go to school, and 99% of children finish the primary school. Girls and boys, so there's no difference at all. It's free of charge. We share Soviet Union history, so we are like a communist country, if you like to say. Education and healthcare is free of charge in the country. So, but at the same time, we see that not every girl finished the school, and only 30% of graduates of the school have access to higher education. So, meaning that not every girl can go to higher education schools. And if you look to the higher education, you see that there is a gender segregation of the profession. I think it's very common to all countries as well, right? So doctors are predominantly women, teachers are predominantly women, lawyers predominantly men. And if you look to the legal profession, you see that criminal cases or criminal law investigations predominantly men, while women take more family issues and etc. So it's really gender segregated, I would say, in higher education. So another very interesting statistic I find is that early marriage is dropped by 30%. Early marriage, we say about 18 years old girls. So less than 80 years. It was a lot in common in our countries. I mean Central Asia, in Uzbekistan particularly. So legal age is 18 for girls and boys to marry. But we have a circumstances by law, for example, I don't know, pregnancy or other issues, that this age can drop by 1. So 17 years old girl can also marry. But then we had lots of history and lots of stories that 14, 15 years old girls were married or forced married. So this statistics is showing that the situation is better in the country. So 30% drop. Now it's legally banned and people can be, called to the court. But at the same time, we see that pregnancy among teenagers increased by 80%. So it can be interpreted in different way, but compared to 5 years ago. Yeah. So if you look, why 5 years ago, I will tell you. So why, and then this also shows that either it's connected with a forced marriage or early marriage, or it's connected with the violence. Because in majority of cases, when girls are raped, usually they are not immediately called to the medical insurance or medical services, right? So they go to the police. Police will handle the case, while pregnancy can happen during the investigation. One of the examples I can give you that it happened, I think, this year. The lady contacted me online. I provide free legal consultations since 2019. And she said, like, in one of the regions, 16 years old girl was raped by 3 boys from 18 to 21. And when they went to police, police said, okay, I will give you $500. So can you take the $500 to the victim? Can you take $500 and close the case? And then we will tell that 18 years old, only 1 was involved in the rape, and 2 others were not involved. So the lady told me that, can I publish it on my social media and somehow help her to raise this issue to the case? So I published, then international organizations helped. Few months passed already. I think it's a half a year already passed. So 2 weeks ago, the lady contacted me and said, now 3 of them are in jail for 8 years of imprisonment without no charge of pardoning. And the girl, of course, she went for the assistance in medical, psychological assistance, financial assistance. But very sad thing, before we raised this case, the girl even was not contacted by medical personnel. Nobody even interested what happened to her. If she's okay or if she needs a medical assistance, nobody really care about this case, right? So that's why the statistics is really, like, for me, not good, not bad, but also makes me to think, is it connected with a forced marriage, or is it connected with the violence that happening in the streets, in the families, or among those whom we know? Now I should say that Uzbekistan had very biggest political shift in 2016. You know that our previous president died, and new president came into power, and then he changed the government, the country dramatically, right? So he opened up the country for foreigners. He made economic liberalization. One of the cruelest prison in the country was closed, which called Jaslik prison. And we, in my language, we used to call it the prison where you go and never come back. So this prison was closed, and we are really thankful for his policy that he's making. And one of the things that he brought to the development is the state policy on tackling gender-based violence and gender equality. So if you see, two fundamental laws were adopted in 2019. Of course, we have lots of things to do. I don't say that we're a great country and we changed dramatically and now we're, developed among developed countries. No, we have a lot of things to do. But in comparison to 7 years ago, I should say that it really, really developed. So these new two laws, fundamental laws of 2019, one is the gender equality law, and the second is law to protect women from oppression and violence. So gender equality law was discussed for 15 years, 15. Nobody ever discussed it public. I mean, they discussed publicly, but Parliament did not even consider it to adopt. So it took 15 years to acknowledge by the government that we need a law on gender-based violence or gender equality. The constitution says, Uzbekistan constitution says, men and women are equal, Article 42. But then nobody really care about this constitution, right? Sometimes constitution is just a piece of paper. This year, we adopted new constitution. It has a lot of political background. I'm not going to be in the detail there, but this Article 42 changed. So new constitution explicitly now says what are rights guaranteed by the constitution to women. So it considers like right to work, right to healthcare, right to education, and etc. and etc. In one hand, it's very good, it's very explicit, but on the other hand, we have a lot of other rights that might not be even included there, but guaranteed by international law. So what's then? So I don't know if I like this new interpretation of the new constitution or not, but at the same time, I understand that these two fundamental laws are protecting women from gender-based violence, from domestic violence, or from any kind of discrimination. So for us as a lawyers, it's very important to have this law as a background and framework to work. So if you look to the statistics, it's from the official statistics. So you see that after adoption of 2019 law, a lot of gender statistics become publicly available. For example, you see the legislative chamber, we have a quotas introduced, and now we have 42% of our and 32% of legislative chamber composed from women, which is very good because we didn't have it. Another question now we have, are they, very, how do you call it? Do they have a right? They're nominal there, but can they oppose? Can they make a change? This is another question. But statistically, we have more women now in parliament. Quality-wise, not sure. Maybe we have to more work on that because we also asked another day, at the beginning of the year when I was in parliament, we asked like a woman, how many women they brought to the parliament to work, like as a member of the parliament. There was 0. It also shows that maybe women's solidarity is another issue that we have to work on. So, but anyway, statistically, we have more women now in the parliament. If you look to the judges, you see that, of course, it's not much, but in comparison to 10 years ago, we have more women now. 13% in judiciary are women. Of course, among 30%, maybe 80% are involved into family cases and only 10 to 12% involved into criminal cases. We have to work on that. It's a very much gender disbalance in the criminal courts or administrative courts. But anyway, we have now more women in the judiciary. If you look to police office, you also see more women going there. Business owners, it's really moving on. Landowners, we also had an issue with the landowners. I know that in Hong Kong also was a problem that women never had an ability to own the property. Now the law changed and more women can have property rights in Hong Kong. This is what I've been told. So we had the issue as well. But again, how it's going to be, I'm not sure in terms of quality-wise. So saying that, I should say that young people play a very crucial role in making a development. I think it's very common to all our countries. I learned a lot about Hong Kong human rights situation. I read a lot of literature, and I see that young people are the force of the change, right? If you look how protests started, it also started with the young people, because young people are so ambitious. They want to change, they want to create, they want to innovate. And this is very good, because this is how it should be. And government's role is to support it. The government's role is not to limit, but also provide more space for more development, for more going forward. Because if you oppress, then sometimes it just can, make negative consequences. So saying that, in 2015, with these young people on the picture, we thought that we have to bring something to Uzbekistan and make Uzbekistan more globalized, not only localized. So then we applied for TEDx license, and we were the first in the country who brought TEDx to Uzbekistan. In 2016, we had first conference. So this picture is from there. And we actually could convince the small theater in Tashkent to provide free of charge venue for us. And it was quite an interesting journey. Now, if you look to TEDx website, you find lots of places in Uzbekistan, lots of cities, universities who are doing TEDx. And I think this is a beauty of the young people make a change, right? You start from a little bit, a little piece, and then you start, spreading this. And I'm really, really proud that I was in the group of like-minded people who supported, and we made it. Interestingly, that we made it for 9 months to prepare the conference. And I should say that I was pregnant when we started, and I had a baby when we had a conference. So it's like having a baby, right? Another thing that I want to share is a Tashkent Hub. Maybe you have heard there's a global shaper community, which is a World Economic Forum initiative. There's one hub in Hong Kong. I'm going to meet them today, and they're very active in Hong Kong. They are uniting people before 30 years old. I met with shapers in Beijing. So it's a global platform where you can be connected with young people around the globe. So in 2019, I was thinking, like, I should do something, right? I'm still not 30 years old. I was planning to join the government and parliament, and then I've been saying that, no, you're too independent, maybe you should not go there. So I was thinking, like, I should do something. So what I started doing is I started applying to Global Shapers, and I'm a founder of Global Shaper Tashkent Hub in Uzbekistan. In 2020, we got this license right before the COVID, and in all reports of WEF in 2021, we appeared as the new country on the map of World Economic Forum. And I think it's very important when you bring Uzbekistan or your country to the global area. And of course, now the community is enlarging in Uzbekistan. We have lots of projects. One of the projects that we did back in 2020 is doing online campaigning and also mobilizing money for poor people to provide food, because we thought that this is important to do. So why I'm saying that is I'm a person who always wants to share the knowledge, wants to make a change, but very, very small pieces, right? I don't want to do and say like, oh, I'm changing the government, I'm changing the country. No, honestly, you can't do it if you are not a president or if you're not a prosecutor general, right? So we are not able to do it. But what we can do is by small pieces, we can change our neighbors, our surrounding, our classmates, our school, and then maybe it will have a domino effect, and then it will grow in something bigger. So why I'm saying that now we're moving to my first questions about gender-based violence. So then slowly but surely I moved to the issue of gender-based violence. Honestly, if you asked me 10 years ago, is there any difference between men and women, right? I would say no, because the law never discriminates men and women. And I would say women themselves are discriminating themselves, right? They're not going to work. So who is limiting them to do something? I would say that 10 years ago. Now, if you ask me the question, yeah, I would say that there is a lot of discrimination based on gender. This is what I see, this is what I feel, and this is what I witness. So in 2020, one of the biggest YouTube channels in Uzbek language asked me if I can give an interview on gender politics and gender policy for Uzbekistan. I said, yeah, why not? I was back that time, I was only female guest. So I give an interview, I talk about the CEDAW Convention, I talk about gender discrimination, I talk about government's policy or obligation of the government to stop any kind of discrimination or notion of discrimination on TV. Especially I said, look, for example, if you open and say, who is the typical Uzbek woman? That will be a big, beautiful woman, portraying, right? But then you have different kinds of women. You have single mothers, you have working women, you have business women. So you have different types of women. And it's like government actually should not support this discriminatory note, right? The government should be neutral. Government should say we have different types of people. So I was in mainland China. I came yesterday. And one of the things that I noticed is Asian beauty. Everywhere, whenever I looked, there were so many typical Asian beautiful ladies and men. And for me, it was a question, like, because I look around and I see that this is not the case. I was like, beauty industry is so much growing, but this is an ideal female and male portraits that also shape how they should look like, right? Before coming, I also watched some videos. I was like, yeah, of course, Chinese women are like this, Chinese men are there. No. Then I'm coming and it's like, oh, it's different. This is a logic behind, and the government should not support it because this will definitely discriminate one or another group. So basically, I was telling about that. And I was like, yeah, you have a good gender-based discrimination. You have institutional discrimination against women, especially when you're a young woman going to work. The most probably you will receive a question when you're going to marry. And if you say like, well, maybe next year, then they will ask you, okay, do you have kids? Are you planning to have another kids? Because then you have to support with the maternity leave. Then you have to understand that she or he will be, especially she, will be always taking leaves because child is going to be sick. In my country, in all our Central Asian countries, but in Uzbekistan is 2 years of paid maternity leave. Imagine, which is great, but for employer, it's not good because you are basically having no employer for 2 years. You have to pay for another one. And then we had a case when the lady was giving a birth for 3 kids in 6 years. Imagine 6 years employer is paying. I mean, I can get why this discrimination is happening, but then it's becoming like, overarching for everyone. So basically I was talking about that, lots of views. But then what happened is that in 1 week, I started receiving tons of hate comments. One of the religious bloggers made a video about me, 17 minutes. I was drinking wine with my girlfriends, discussing different things. And then out of sudden, I receive emails and then messages and phone calls. Oh, Dilfuza, we support you, no worries. I was like, why? What happened? I'm sitting at home. But then I realized that there was a 17-minute video about me, about how bad am I, how I'm brainwashed by the West, and etc. and etc. And then the comments were so severe. They threatened me to kill. They threatened to kill my children, my family members. They knew where I live. They said like, we're gonna kill you. And every single minute I received around hundreds of such comments. And it was overall, all of my friends around the world who know me on public space, they were texting me, do you need any help? Do you need any assistance? Because we're really, really afraid of what's going on there, because it was severe hate speech online. I received a lot of comments saying that, I'm sorry, we are supporting you, but we will not publicly announce it, because they were afraid of being hated. There were some people who were supporting hatred because they wanted to be in that line, not to be hated, right? But also we had a bloggers who were, making their popularity. There were some supporting me, some not supporting me. So I was an object, let's say, or subject of discussions, hate somebody to make a policy about them, or ratings went up. I received lots of comments saying, can you do a public speech toward this blogger? And then, I will be also become more popular blogger and etc. It's like, no, I'm not gonna do it, of course, because once I had two ways to solve the case, right? Except going public. One, I was thinking about going to the court and sue him because it was a hate speech. It was definitely because of his video, who has millions of followers. Because of him, I received a lot of hatred. And if somebody touched me, if somebody comes and kill me or hit me, it will be his responsibility to do it, right? Because of his video, I received hate comments. On the other hand, I understand that the law does not explicitly say what is the freedom of speech, because he never say, I hate her. He says, I saw her video and this is what I understand. So matter of, wording was completely different. I of course, I had to watch this video. But then I was thinking, like, shall I go to the court or not? I discussed with my friends who are in judiciary. And then it's like, you know what? It will take you forever. It will take you a lot of energy, a lot of money, but it will be, his words against your words. So what I did is, doing my campaign. I wrote an article. I submitted the case to the gender committee under the Senate. And then I start talking it very explicitly and say, look, this is nothing wrong what I'm doing. And he has to be called for the court, or he has to be called for and take the responsibility for spreading the hate speech. So this is how I started my campaigning. Of course, the feedback mechanism didn't work. After 4 months, I had to write to the head of the Senate publicly and saying, like, Senate is not working and not supporting. And they were calling me. Of course, then it became very national hot topic. I remember there's an agency for mass media. I also raised this question to them. I said, look, what did you do to me? I mean, did you support me? No. Did you shut down this blogger? No. Because it was not about him against me, but it was him supporting masculine views, right? So then I figured out that there were many cases in Uzbekistan when women spoke about their rights and they were hated. There were cases when people with the guns, not guns, but with the, different objects, they came to their houses and they were waiting to beat them. There were cases when women were fired. There were cases when women were hospitalized because of the hate, and nobody supported because everyone afraid. And I know that women afraid to speak about that as well, right? Because now, if I look back, I would say, oh my God, what did I do? Because I never thought about that. I never thought. I was like doing the stuff. I was like, you know what? I'm a fighter. I will go and fight. I will sue him. I would talk about him. But now I was like, oh my God, I was so afraid. My husband came to me and said, you know what? These people can come to our house because everyone knows where do you live. Because I'm putting locations, And it was like, he was so afraid. My family was afraid. And it's like, okay, no, we should do something. Now we raise this question with the public, with the great support of my friends, my followers, my universities, my co-workers. Everyone supported me because I started talking about that openly. I said, yes, I was harassed, and then we have to do something. So then a year ago, there were another blogger who is very famous in Uzbekistan, Kirill Altman. He is doing a lot of social documentaries. He made a special 2 series about women's rights, and then say, like, you know what, we have to talk about this because it's not a single issue, it's a systematic issue. Because again, coming back to the comments, one of the comments were like, I'm afraid to support you. Men say, I'm afraid to support you. Because if you support, right, okay, I'm supporting her. next day or in a minute, he will be hated. And not everyone would like to cope with this hatred, right? So that's why we start doing online campaigning. I joined other online campaigns as well. So now, after doing this all, fight, because I was doing online speeches, I was writing articles, provided my feedback. I also participate in writing alternative reports to UN treaty bodies for 3 or 4 years. Now I'm an expert in 3 state committees. It's ridiculous, but I'm really happy that they're including me because I'm an independent. I'm not in a government position at all, but I also would like to make this communication more effective, because one thing you're criticizing, another thing you're doing constructive dialogue with the government. So now, after this case in 2020, I've been included as an independent expert to Gender Committee under the Senate, then Anti-Corruption Agency of Uzbekistan. And then recently, I've been also joining the Preventive Monitoring Mechanism of Ombudsman, where they tackle issues of torture. So sometimes I also visit prisons to see like what are the conditions and etc. So another thing that really helped me back in 2020 is one of the projects which called "Не молчи, Уз," Don't Be Silent. This is very powerful movement in the country. So the lady who is standing there on the left, in the light blue, Irina Matvienko, she is the author of this project. In 2017, they started this project, and she started publishing anonymous complaints of victims of domestic violence. Now they became as a movement. So I remember when hatred started, and I writing, because we're acting independently, but then they were also supporting, and they have the biggest community, FEM community in Uzbekistan. And I think this project is like brilliant because they are so brave to raise the personal questions and making it more public and showing where the weakness of the system existing in Uzbekistan. So then in last year, all of us, these are 6 people, that picture is more relevant, but here we have ambassadors as well, ambassador of European Union and the representative of UNDP in Uzbekistan. So last year, we all been called, first time in the history of Uzbekistan, independent people, we asked to join a government working group on the law on domestic violence. When we were called, we didn't believe, because we thought like, government usually do not call civil society or independent expert. So we joined the government last year as a working group members. And this year, it was a long fight. Honestly, it was so much harassment toward us by the public officials, by the judiciary, by the police, because we were sitting, there were like around 45 or 48 people discussing the law. It was like 72 pages. Every time when we come to Senate, it was like 10 hours, 8 hours of nonstop discussions. And we were only 6 people. One of them is from Prosecution General Office, another from UNICEF, 3 of them from Не молчи, Уз. I'm independent. And then we have Mass Media Association as well in the middle. So we were just really, really fighting that domestic violence, sexual harassment has to be criminal and administrative offense. We got really crazy when it comes to the discussions because it was very tough. Imagine that police officers are sitting and then telling in front of you how they're important and what they're doing as a professionals. And then we are giving them another counter statistics and discussion. So it lasted 1 year, but with the support of the high level politicians, and there were women actually, finally, this April, Uzbekistan adopted the law criminalizing domestic violence. We are 5th in post-Soviet Union countries who adopted and criminalized domestic violence. I think this is a very big achievement when civil society could somehow work with the government, and government a little bit trusted civil society in making a change. Otherwise, I think this would not happen because, as I said previously, the law on gender equality was discussed 15 years. And it only 1 year took for us to put domestic violence and criminalize it in the country. Of course, now we're working on investigations and making like people have to go, at least women have to go and submit these cases. There should be forensic examination. So a lot of work ahead. It's not a stop. But then we just, small piece by piece, we start working and we start doing it. So this is how I started my journey as just a human rights person. I started as a young person to, put Uzbekistan into the global area. But then I think I end up with doing femme activism in Uzbekistan. This is a beautiful dish, national, which called plov. So I always say that all you need is plov, right? It's love. But in conclusion, I just want to say that in my experience, every time, whenever you struggle, whenever you see something, whenever you are facing an issue, support is very important. Even one like, one share, one comment actually make people's life better. I remember when I was hated, and even one comment was like sending a heart emoji. It was like really lifting me up. It's like, okay, some people caring about me. Some people support me. I'm not doing wrong thing. I'm doing the right thing. So it's not about pleasing others, but it's about giving an energy toward other people who are fighting. I remember I received tons of comments saying, we are so brave because we never were able to say that. But then you were telling gender-based discrimination happening in our societies and families. So I don't think that I'm a fighter, great fighter. No, I think I just did what I could do. But then I realized that this is the only way when you're living in authoritarian or more controlled government to push human rights. The only way is to speak. The only way is not maybe protesting. Maybe protesting is not working in some of the countries. Maybe it's too dangerous for people to go and protesting. Maybe people have lots of things to lose. That's why they don't go. But then constructive dialogue is always an option to talk with the people, to convince, because other party, the government, is also people, right? If you convince them slowly, but surely there will be change. This is what I really, really believe. So I know that my time is up. And finally, my final question, maybe not a question, but will be a comment saying, if you next time see the violence, I hope you will support them. I hope you will share or put the like, or at least do not hate, or at least do not be ignorant and be more caring, because this is really, really important for our society. Thank you so much. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dilfuza, for that inspiration. I think you've given us actually a lot of reason to hope in a time when many of us feel discouraged about sort of the human rights situation globally. And I think your call for gradual change, sort of chipping away at the culture and, having these small victories, I think is really important to bear in mind when we're thinking about how to move forward in difficult contexts. So I'd like to open the floor to questions. I think, unfortunately, we're out of time. We're over time. But thank you very much, Dilfuza, for sitting here with us and speaking out, and for your courage and your openness. We really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Thanks a lot. Hope you will visit Uzbekistan anytime. So there's the plot. Thanks.